Get everyone, B Agent Dad here. We're going to do the in-depth review of this Dell Precision 7550, a 15-inch mobile workstation from Dell, and it's more like a desktop replacement that you can carry around. Now, for people who are looking at this, are very serious about performance and put it very high on their top of their list there. So I'm going to look into the internals of this computer. It's more closer to later of the video, so stick around for that. Also look at the noise and temperature of this computer with its thermals, and I'll do the touch and feel of this computer as well. Now we're going to start off with what this computer can be configured with, and we'll start off with the processor. Now this computer houses a 10th generation Intel core, and you can get anywhere between an i5 all the way to a Xeon there. As for RAM wise, it can be configured up to a maximum capacity of 128 gigs. That's right, 128 gigs. Now it can be non-ECC RAM, which is for the i5s all the way to i9, and there will also be the ECC RAM for 128 for the Xeon's configurations there. Now as for the hard drive wise, it can house 3 SSD hard drives, which is the M.2 format. As for the graphics wise, of course it's got the integrated graphics, but if you're looking at this computer, more than likely you're serious about the graphical power as well. So it can be configured with discrete graphics, which is the NVIDIA Quadro T1000 or T2000. It is also available the RTX 3000, 4000 and 5000. So you can see this thing can house some serious graphical power there. Absolute fantastic. As for the display screen, there's a few options there. So let's start off the full HD options. So there is a power saving version mode, and that one goes up to 220 nits of brightness. And then there is the touch and non-touch full HD normal version. Now those ones are rated to 500 nits of brightness, and there of course there is a 4K version. Now the 4K doesn't come with touch, and they can be rated at 500 nits of brightness, and there's also a 600 nits of brightness one as well too. And they all come with this matte anti-glare finish there, so there's no glossy version there for you. Let's have a look at the ports. Starting on the right hand side of the computer, we've got the full size SD card reader, then we have the headphone jack, and then we have the 2 USB 3.1 Gen 1 USB-A ports, and the one on the right is got power share, and then we have the normal wedge lock slot. Looking at the back side of the computer, we've got the mini display port, now that's version 1.4, and then we have the HDMI port, now that's version 2.0, then we've got the RJ45 Ethernet port there, and on the right side we have the AC barrel style to where you plug in the power, and on the left hand side we've got 2 Thunderbolt ports and also the optional smart card. I do say I love the port selection on the 7550. It's fantastic. You don't have to be scrambling for dongles or anything like that, which is most of the usual ports is built into the ports, which is great. As for the webcam, it is a 720p webcam there. There is an RGB version, and there's also an IR version as well. Now I do wish they actually upgraded to a 1080p webcam, because we are in the 2020th century now, and I do wish, and especially on a computer of this sort of price tag, I do wish they actually had brought in a 1080p webcam in there. Now it does include a privacy shutter in there, and it's a matter of just a nice little quick flick of the switch on the top there, you will see it will go red, which means there's actually a physical shutter to actually cover it, so there's no accidental turn on of the webcam there, which is great. So no need for the blue tack or electrical tape there, which is fantastic. This is a recording from the built-in webcam from the Dell Precision 7550, and also the audio as well. Now this is the RGB version of the webcam, and I have got a fair bit of light there, so I'm actually going to turn off my key light just to see what it looks like with just the ambient light there. So it's just for you to have a look at what it looks like, and I would love to actually hear your thoughts on the image quality as well as the audio quality. Turn attention to the keyboard. Now the keyboard on the 7550 is great. It is a full-size keyboard, and it comes with a number pad on the right side, so it's great for the people who are working with a lot of numbers there, or just doing data entry for a lot of the data analysis that this computer more than likely do. So I like having the number pad on a 15-inch computer. You got plenty of space, you might as well use it and put it more of use, which is great there. So I like the number pad there for there. And as for each key, there is the surface of the keys are what I would call soft sort of type of plastic, not that really hard, really smooth plastic there. So I like this feel of this key there, and it's got a fair bit of key travel there, so, and it's quite tactile there as well too, so I definitely like it. I feel it's very durable for the time that I've had it so far and been playing with it. It feels very durable. I haven't had much smudge marks on it neither, which is great, and it just has a very nice tactile feel to it there. And as for the trackpad there, now this trackpad looks in comparison quite small, but it's not. It is the perfect size. I find it is actually quite large when you put it onto another 14 or 13 inch computer. This is actually quite large. It just looks deceivingly small because of the palm rest here. Now it does have 3 mechanical buttons on the bottom there. Now there is a middle mechanical button. I don't know what's that used for. Very little amount of work I use for that. It does bring up the contextual menu there, but if you're a user of the 3rd middle button there, I'd love to hear what you actually use that button. You can reconfigure it, but I like to see what it is. Maybe it might be time to actually lose that button and actually have a 2-button trackpad there. Now, of course, what I'm talking about, the surface of this trackpad is beautiful. It feels like glass. It's like really nice and smooth. You don't have problems if you've got very moist fingers as well too. I find that very nice there. And the palm rest there, you can quite happily work on this, and you're not quite a bad offset for the camera there when you actually work on it. You've still got a fair bit of left side of the palm rest when you actually put your fingers on the home key. You still got quite nice to actually type in there. So I've just put my hand on the left hand side, and you can see I've still got plenty of it. And your left palm isn't actually resting on the trackpad there, which is great. So it's like I said, this is just the perfect size trackpad there. I really like this trackpad there for the sizing there. So definitely nice. It's got a nice smooth feel finish to it there as well too. As for the speakers, I noticed there was 4 speakers. So there are 2 speakers located on the bottom side of the computer, 1 on each side, and there's also 2 more speakers on above the keyboard there. You'll see the speaker grill on top as well. Now when I measured the maximum peak volume of the speakers here, it measured at 85.2 decibel. So it's not really crazy on the loud side of volume wise for speakers wise. As for the sound quality, it does a decent job there. It does have a bit of bass, not crazy amount of bass, but enough to be happy with. You won't be crazy struggling with presentations when you're on the run there. And as for when you put the volume at the maximum peak, it won't distort there, which is actually quite good in this part. But I do find Dell really needs to actually really look into improving the speakers on this computer, especially at its flagship range and the amount of money that you've been spending. I think they really need to improve on the speakers on the 7000 series quite a lot. As for the build quality, the chassis is actually all aluminium, so it's really nice. And on the sides, it's all brush aluminium as well. It's beautiful, nice brush aluminium look to it, and along also the back as well. It's all aluminium at the back as well too. What is plastic is actually the hinge there, but it looks to be very sturdy. I can definitely tell that this computer can take a fair bit of beating. And as for the palm rest, it's got a bit of the rubberized sort of palm rest there, so you can, for the heat as well as the fuel. So it definitely can last a fairly long time there. I know this rubber there, fantastic. I'd like to bring your attention to a new application that Dell has supplied with the Dell Precision range, and that's called the Dell Power Manager. Now the Dell Power Manager is to do with the battery, but the one thing I really want to bring your attention to is one here called thermal management, and that's to deal with the system thermals plus the fan as well too. Now there's a 4 different schemes there. There's optimized, cool, and quiet, and the big one that we're really after is the ultra performance. Now all this used to be accessed through BIOS, but now you can actually change this on the fly in Windows, which is absolutely great. So you don't need to actually reboot the computer to actually access the ultra performance mode. And once you're done with your task that you want to do, you can bring it back to optimized so you can quieten down the fan or you can just keep them cool. So this is great. So this actually works on the fly there. So I definitely love this new Dell Power Manager. As for power wise, Dell has supplied a 180 watt power adapter. Now, as you can see, this power adapter is quite chunky. It's quite a bit of the heavy side of things as well, but this is a desktop replacement. And so it does need to produce enough power to power what this computer could be configured with, especially with the RTX cards in there. It does suck a lot of power there. So that's forgivable there. And I would still be traveling with one of these in a way. So especially with the weight of this, you kind of get used to its heaviness. As for the battery life, I tested in the 4 modes. So first off is the performance mode. Now with the performance mode, I had the power scheme set to ultra performance, so I had the fans running at 100%, and I also had the processor and the GPU running at 100% load as well, and it managed to get 1 hour and 6 minutes out of the battery there. And as for the better performance mode, I actually got 1 hour and 15 minutes, so it's not that much more difference than the performance mode there. As for the better battery life mode, I did drop the CPU and GPU load down to 50%, and it managed to get 3 hours and 13 minutes. As for the battery saving mode, I did drop the screen brightness from 100% down to 50%, and it managed to get 5 hours. So as you can see, the battery life on this computer isn't fantastic. I did do the BIOS updates, play around with the power settings, but I didn't really manage to get more than 5 hours out of this computer here. So this computer, you can actually take it out on field or go to a cafe and still work on the computer on the battery for an hour or two, but you probably do want to be close to the mains to recharge the battery or work off the computer, because this one here I've got configured is i7 with a Quadro T1000. So if you've got RTX card, I'm expecting the numbers to go down a little bit more. So the weight of the 7550 is 2.65 kilos, and add on the power adapter in there is 3.3 kilos. For the fan noise and temperature of the computer, I did measure them under the optimized mode for the power scheme, and when I put this computer on load, I found most of the heat, of course, is near the exhaust as well as the upper center of the keyboard. And that's not unsurprising because that's where the processor and also the GPU sits there under the keyboard there. Now, first off is my ambient temperature, which was 19 degrees Celsius when I took the measure. Yes, we're in winter here in Australia. Well, I know other countries are more cooler, but for 19 degrees, for me, that's still quite cold. And if you're in a more warmer climate, I expect these numbers to go up. Now, first off, I did take a base measurement, which is when the computer was on idle, and it measured a maximum of 30 degrees Celsius, and with the fan noise at 31 decibels, so it's pretty quiet there. And then I ran the computer at 20% load, so that's pretty much average use, what you'd be doing for office productivity, work, surfing the web, even streaming as well. And the maximum temperature was 32 degrees Celsius, and the fan noise was reading at 32 decibels. And when the computer's running at 50% load, it measured at a maximum of 39 degrees Celsius, and the fan noise was at 34 decibels. And when the computer's at 100% load, that's the processor and the GPU running 100% load, it measured a maximum temperature of 43 degrees Celsius, and the fan noise was reading at 38 decibels. And now this is in the optimized mode, and I did try this in the ultra performance mode as well, and the maximum temperature was 40 degrees Celsius, and the fan noise was at a maximum peak of 44 decibels. I did also measure the bottom end of the computer where the back cover is, and it measured at a maximum peak of 48 degrees Celsius, and of course the running in optimized mode was at 38 decibels for the fan noise. When you're running this computer in optimized mode, you'll find the fan will ramp up its fan for about 45 seconds duration, and then it will ramp back down for about 4 to 5 minutes, and then after that it will ramp its fan right back up again. Whereas in ultra performance mode, it pretty much stays very consistently quite high up there, but you won't find it's actually annoying. Like I said, 44 decibel, you do hear it, but it's not crazy loud there. So this computer here is configured with i7 10750H processor, and it pretty much stayed at a very stable 4.17 gigahertz consistently. Very stable over a very long exterior time. It doesn't really change. So this computer here has very stable performance, absolutely brilliant. And especially if you're working with the GPU as well, it still stays at 4.17 gigahertz. So that's pretty amazing there. So this is all thermal throttling, and even for the turbo throttling, it is extremely small amount as well. So this is a really good performance computer here for extended period times as well. Very stable. I'm very impressed by that. As for the docking port or docking stations, the recommended dock for the 7550 is the Dell WD-19 DC dock. Now DC standing for dual channel or dual cable, because what comes out of it is two USB-C cables there, which you actually then plug into the two Thunderbolt ports on the 7550 to actually produce enough power. Now what's interesting is the Dell WD-19 DC dock does not have Thunderbolt ports on it. So, and this 7550 does have Thunderbolt ports, so that's a bit of interesting there. Hopefully Dell will actually upgrade the DC model to have Thunderbolt ports. Now, you can get the Dell WD-19 TB dock, which is the Thunderbolt enabled version, but this only produce 130 watts to this Thunderbolt port here, which isn't able to power this computer properly, that is. But there is a way to get around it. Now, you can plug it in directly and you'll get a warning message say it's on slow charge, but you can still work on it. But if you really need to run at its maximum speed, you need to get that sign away. And now the way to get around that is actually to plug in the supply 180 watt power adapter to the back of the computer first, and then connect the Dell WD-19 TB dock. And then that will take away, get rid of the slow charge issue, and it will definitely run on its AC power, and which allows this 7550 to run at its maximum speed there, and not on the battery sort of mode there. But if you plug in the WD-19 TB first without plugging the AC power, you'll get the slow charge message. It will more than likely still run it, quite happily run it, but you may find that in the performance mode it may not run at its maximum speed there. That's about it. Let's have a look at the internals of the 7550. First off, we need to undo the 8 screws holding the back cover in. They are Phillips heads, so it's easy to find a screwdriver. After that, you need a tool to just pry it open with. I'm just using my daughter's Play-Doh scalpel tool. It's fantastic for this task, and the easy way to do it is come from the corner front of the computer and then just go along the side of the ports, and be careful of course, and then from the corner to the front center, and then from the corner from along the sides, and again corner to the front corner, and then you slowly pry it open there. Now I've actually pre-undone this one already to speed things up, so we'll just undo the cover there. Now this is what the internal looks like. Now straight off we can see the battery. Now this one here I've got configured is with the 68 watt 6-cell battery, and there is a 95 watt-hour battery, again 6-cell as well too, they can configure with. Now to disconnect the battery, is located right here. It's got a nice little lever, and you just pull it, and that disconnects the battery. Now it is held in by 3 screws here. I've pre-undone them, so I'm just going to pop it open, pull it up so you can actually see what's underneath. There's not much you can see. The only thing you need to take note of, this is where the smart card module sits there. I'm going to put this one back in again. Now look on the left hand side of the battery here, we can then see the 2 M.2 slots here for the SSD hard drives. I've got one configured ready with it. There's another one here, it's held in by 2 screws there. Now looking onto above here, this is where the third M.2 SSD hard drive can sit as well too, again held in by 2 screws and a little lock here. Now underneath that is the Wi-Fi module here, and then we can see there's a SIM tray slot here as well too, which is for LTE, and then we got the WAN card as well too, which is great. And then looking on the right over here, we've got 2 SODIMM slots for the RAM upgrades. Now there are actually 4 in total. There are actually 2 more on the other side of this main board, which is underneath the keyboard. Now Dell will actually use those 2 first, when you initially configure with, and leave these two blanks for you so you can upgrade. Unless you actually got a much higher capacity of 64 and above, then they'll start using these ones as well. And that's pretty much all there is for the internals here that you need to look at upgrading. Let's examine the luminance or the brightness of a display. Now first off, this is the full HD non-touch version of the display, and I do have made sure I've got turn night light off as well. Now I'm going to use my X-Rite i1 display tool to help me do the measurements. Now the measurement we need to take note of is this one here called current. It is measured in candela per square meter, and 1 candela per square meter equals 1 nit of brightness. So there are 10 increments on the keyboard for the brightness, and we're going to go through each one of them very quickly. So I'm going to go all the way down to 0. Increment 0 is 58 nit of brightness. Increment number 1 is 84 nit of brightness. Increment number 2 is 139 nit. Increment number 3 is 192 nit. Increment number 4 is 242 nit. Increment number 5 is 294 nit. Increment number 6 is 345 nit. Increment number 7 is 395 nit. Increment number 8 is 447 nit. Increment number 9 is 484 nit. Increment number 10 at its maximum is 539 nit. Now this is meant to be rated at 500 nit, so that's kind of a little bit more brighter than that. Now to help the photographers and videographers, we're going to look for 100 to 120 candela per square meter, because that's what we're looking for editing photos. So I'm just going to bring it down to 0, 1, increment number 1, increment number 2. We're at 138 already. So I'm going to fine tune this down at the brightness setting. So I'm just going to zoom back out, brightness setting, and we're at 20 at the moment. So let's move this down to 16. We're looking at 115. That's pretty good. Maybe we go to 17. Look at 121, which is a little bit too high. So I'm taking it as 100. So about 16, value of 16 is looking sweet there. And you're looking at 115 candela per square meter. Testing the color gamut coverage of a display, and managed to measure it at 99.2% sRGB coverage and 84.5% Adobe RGB coverage, which is actually pretty decent. And I have tested if it uses PWM, and I am pleased to report it does not use PWM for the full HD non-touch display. The display has now been color calibrated using the X-Rite i1 display tool. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like after calibration. So this is before, what it looks like out of factory from Dell, and this is what it looks like after. And straight away I can see it's gone a lot more cooler for sure. So this is before, after calibration. I'm just going to go to before again, and I'll bring it to color. So this is before, out of factory, after calibration. It's just cool down a little bit, that's about it. It's before, after. I actually also tried the black and white. So this is high key, before, after. And this is mid-tone here, before and after. And low-key tone, before and after. I did run the benchmarks for this computer here. Now this one is configured with an i7 with 32 gigs of RAM, NVIDIA Quadro T1000, and here is the pass mark scores for you to see. Citybench R15 and R20, PC Mark, 3D Mark, Geekbench, and Spec View Pref. And Crystal Disk as well. I've been running around with this computer for a couple weeks now, and I gotta say, I like this computer a lot. I love the keyboard, I love the trackpad, the display does a decent job, although I like to see Dell put a 16 by 10 ratio display on this like they did with the Dell Precision 5550. That was a gorgeous display. I love to see the next 75,000 series have a display like that. That will be fantastic. As for the sound wise for speakers, I like to see them upgrade that, but luckily I actually run off headphones most of the time, and I'm probably more than likely a lot of other people are using headphones as well, so it's not a big deal breaker. But as for the main star, the performance of this computer, now that is mind-blowing amazing. It is so stable and it's quite cool, and it's not really that crazy loud as well, especially even at 44 decibel. It may sound a lot, but I've seen other ones go all up to like 49 or even 50 decibels. So this is actually quite quiet, and the thermals on this is great. The performance is just, oh, it's mind-blowing how good it is. So definitely I would recommend this for its performance. Fantastic. Now if you find this video informative, enjoyed it, give it a like, and if you haven't done already, subscribe to my channel by hitting that subscribe button on the screen. I do try to upload a new video every week. And just remember, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. I'll see you next video.